Walk me through what you believe Roswell was all about.
Roswell, I believe it was a Horton flying wing. I know that.
Like, what was who was behind it? Why did they do it?
Yeah, you don't want people. Well, it became the stealth bomber. Decades later, the Horton flying wings became like all the B-2 and the F-117 and all that. You wouldn't want people to know about that, so you put a hokey story behind it. UFOs from the Henry Tizard days in Great Britain, where we had the Battle of the Beams that were the Foo Fighters that were actually beam weapons. Like they had the earliest beam weapons. They had to cover that somehow. So you create this hokey story about aliens and Foo Fighters, and you see all these little green men cartoons coming out around that time.
Yeah.
And Bugs Bunny and all that. And then if you had physical craft that nobody knew about, like Avro Canada, who was recreating some of the flying pancake-shaped disc craft. And if you had these different groups that were working on technology that you took after the war, you wouldn't want anybody to know about that. Like Kenneth Arnold, I have the first issue of Fate magazine where Kenneth Arnold brings out his story about the flying discs, the flying saucers.
Yeah.
And they weren't saucers. They were Horton flying wings. If you look at the pictures of them.
I think Giorgiani was telling us about this.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very obvious that we were flying these things around and had to put down some kind of wall around it, and I think it just served a purpose, and they kept it going for decades.
Yeah.
So people don't act. You're going to get laughed out of a room if you bring up aliens. I mean, certainly a decade or two ago. Nowadays, people can talk about that.
Have you heard Andy Jacobson's theory on it?
Oh, what is it?
In her book Area 51, she interviewed a top level EG&G engineer. And when she was interviewing him, he was really, really old. This was like, she interviewed him, I think maybe 10 years before he died. And he basically said he was working for EG&G, and he confessed to her that the Roswell incident was a Soviet-controlled drone, remote-controlled fake flying saucer with surgically manipulated children to look like aliens by Mengele, and they crashed him here to basically some sort of like chaos, some sort of like World of Worlds type thing in the U.S. And she asked him, like, okay, well, if the Soviet Union surgically altered children and crashed them in New Mexico, why wouldn't we just say they did that? Because that would make them look terrible. Yeah. Right? Why would we keep that a secret? And this EG&G engineer responded to her and said, because we started doing the same exact thing.
Honestly, I think that's a bullshit story, and they always have an explanation for things. Thanks for telling me, but yeah, that just doesn't ring true based on what I know about the rest of how it all kind of fits together. Yeah, I mean, you bring up like EG&G, like they still have a vested interest in keeping the truth. Department of Energy, EG&G, and Area 51. Well, you want to go back to Mirage Men and Benowitz. What did Benowitz actually see over Kirtland Air Force Base? He was seeing balls of light and stuff moving that were faster, and they go into mountainsides and all this stuff, right? So they brought out Doty, and Doty dotied him, and Benowitz went crazy. Well, what did he see? Well, there was a laser facility testing, these balls of light, these lasers, right on the mountain on, I think it's called Coyote Pass or Coyote Mountain. Yeah. It's a Department of Energy laser facility there that nobody knew about. And they still want to keep that shit secret. They still haven't let these out of the bag. You're just now hearing about the talking balls of light. And I know for a fact they were using that shit as early as Rendlesham.
And the NSA literally parked right across the street from his house, and they were like beaming stuff into his house, telling him that they were aliens from another planet. They're coming here because they ran out of water and they're going to be here in a couple of years. Yeah, and they were. There's indication he was getting injected with things and all that. It's when he was in the mental institution, that like there were other groups. It wasn't just Air Force. Doty, to play devil's advocate for Doty, he might have been the patsy for this. He's the bad guy that got Benowitz going. He got integrated with him. But he might not have been the guy that drove him crazy. There might have been other people like NRO, NSA, whoever, another Valerie Ransone or Tim Taylor coming by that really did the job on him, because it was still beneficial for them to kind of turn Benowitz into a useful asset that could put out disinformation or be a warning. You ask me what I think of like Chris Bledsoe, I think he's another Benowitz. Yeah, and that makes sense. I think so. I think, from the way the Mirage Men documentary posted it, though, the way they portrayed him is as a conduit of disinformation to poison the well of the UFO community, to throw off the Soviet spies
That's possible. Yeah.
that were embedded in the UFO community.
The worst part is I'm a guy. I'm just a dude.
Yeah.
You're just a dude. I presume. Right. I don't know if you're working for anybody. I don't care. You're a nice guy. Yeah. I know. Yeah. We'll never know. We'll never know at the top level what's actually going on at the NRO or NSA.
Right.
You can never scratch that itch, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So could it be? Sure. It could be. But it's not aliens. I mean, that doesn't look anything like aliens to me.
And you told me something about how that documentary had something to do with British intelligence.
Yeah. Did you check that out when I sent it to you?
I couldn't find it.
You couldn't find? Oh, okay. So
did you send it to me?
I did send it. Yeah. I followed right up on that. Yeah.
Okay. I never saw it.
Okay. So there's a guy in Great Britain, Richard D. Hall. He does a program called Rich Planet, and he exposed that the guy that did Mirage Men, there's two guys, I think it was Lundberg and Pilkington. Lundberg was working with British intelligence. He was living in a British intelligence paid for house and flat. And he was doing, he and Pilkington, I believe, both were doing fake crop circles. And that had been a project through their Circle Makers site, that this was a thing being funded by the British intelligence, and it was integrated somehow with Air Force intelligence as well. Their servers, some of them were like on Air Force base areas. So how that goes together, I have no freaking clue. But I know these guys have ties to intelligence, and then they come out with Mirage Men, the book, which I have and read, and then the documentary, and you're like, what game are they playing? Like, what spy versus spy thing are they playing here with this?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, but it's ultimately the UFO stuff. The first UFO book came out it was a British book. It came out in 1950. The first UFO documentary came out along with it, like a media propaganda campaign that was named the same thing, called The Flying Saucer. And they came out after Henry Tizard and the British high royalty, admiralty, whatever the freak they considered it at that time.
Yeah.
Needed to do disinformation to cover up what was going on with the German technology they had gotten. And then later, I think it was a year or two later, Tizard came over to Montreal, kicked off MKUltra by meeting with CIA and Oman Salant from Canada. And that's when you get the McGill University CIA study, or McGill University MKUltra studies. It was a joint project. It wasn't just the CIA. It wasn't German. The guys that were running MKUltra in the CIA were Jewish. Sidney Gottlieb and Jolly and West were Jewish guys. They weren't Germans. They weren't coming over as part of Project Paperclip.
Right.
But how does it all integrate and weave together up to British intelligence? We don't you can't get that high to know what the actual overall was about it. But it's been going forever.
Have you read Chaos by Tom O'Neill?
Yeah, it's good. It's real good. The documentary is good too. Yeah.
That is. Oh, I haven't even seen the documentary yet. I need to watch it. It just came out.
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah. With who was it? Errol Morris was the one who put that thing out, about that thing together.
Again, British guy, right?
I don't think Errol's British. No. Is Errol Morris British? That's Hamilton's dad. He's done a lot of really good documentaries.
Nice. Yeah, I like that a lot. It was they had, what was it? Is it O'Neill that did?
Tom O'Neill's the one who wrote the book.
Yeah, I read the book, the original book. He's got a lot more detail on Jolly and how far he got with things. There was that the one guy at his base that he made go off and kill a little girl. That was a Jolly and West op. And then the timing of it was that this guy goes and does psychological work with Jolly and West a couple days before that, goes off and is found walking up from a quarry where a little girl was killed. They arrest him for it as whatever, and then Jolly and West magically gets all the leeway and funding he needs right after that. It was like a proof of concept. It's sick.
And he found, and Tom found out that Haight-Ashbury Clinic was directly it was funded by a CIA cutout.
Yeah, that was Jolly, and then he had his crash pad there as well.
And they were doing all this testing with psychedelics and amphetamines together.
Yep.
With these people. Yep. With Manson and bringing those girls up there all the time.
He was doing it all over. He was a mover and shaker. He was involved with things all over the country. You want to know something really cool about Jolly and West? Again, an exclusive for Danny Jones. Check out LA 78, Nike Missile Silo.
LA 78.
I think it's LA
Nike Missile Silo?
Nike Missile Silo. I think it's LA 78. Should pop up on Google. This is good. This is worth it.
Okay, is this it?
That's it.
Battery site, Los Angeles?
Yep. If you pull that up, actually, you could probably pull that up on Google Maps and get like a 3D view of where that is. Nowadays, it's supposedly being used as a firefighting facility. Now they don't even have it. I've got a view of it. It's in the Malibu Hills. Jolly and West petitioned Stubblebine, who was...
You can find it, Steve.
Yeah.
Oh, Stubblebine's the guy who offered Greer like $2 billion.
Go with this. Stubblebine's, I believe it was his brother, was the head of California Human Health and Services. Jolly and West petitioned him to get use of this Nike missile silo as an underground MKUltra facility to bring in runaways and prisoners and people from various walks of life that wouldn't be missed and test on them in this Nike missile site. And now it's being used as a firefighting facility. But I believe that same Stubblebine was the brother of General Stubblebine, who is the Greer guy, who was the head of INSCOM and who was John Alexander's, daddy, and started off all the shit with the Monroe Institute, which is another continuation of MKUltra. Bob Monroe was mentored and took the technology from Andrea Puharish, who was his buddy.
Wow.
It all weaves together. Everything we have out here in pop culture about these subjects weaves together in some really effed up ways.